Hey everybody, this is Grace. In this video, I'm going to talk about a woman, Veronica, who basically lives a double life. And one of which she lives in the county that she grew up in. And it started off as like a teenage rebellion. And she just kept it because she became part of something that is more of her secret life, of her double life, which her double life could be considered more than double, because other than that part of it, she goes, when she got her inheritance money, she started, she went to the big city, bought herself a condominium, and none of her family knows this. She still has her home with her family and all. And she started attending university there, and she got worked through it all, and, you know, her degrees and everything, and they didn't even know about it. And she became a licensed professional counselor. They didn't know any of that. She has her own small practice in the big city. Now, she would return to her home. She would just tell her family she was, you know, whenever her classes were, but they didn't know she was taking classes, she would just say, I'm going to go stay with a friend. We're going to go shopping in the big city. Whatever it was, she would tell a lie about it. But it was all part of really, parts of it were about her other job, her other, like, hidden, that's her second hidden job or something, you can call it, which she works for well, she's part of, and she works for starting in early 2020, she basically started working with a woman named Meg. They all are part of this original group of geeks back in the day. She was one of the younger ones, and they all pretty much run it. Nobody is the owner, or nobody's really the boss, but she started working with Meg's team. Okay, you know, some of them have teams. Nobody, you know, like I said, nobody owns it. Boy, that was a lot of information. But let me go back to her dysfunctional family. You know, Veronica's very dysfunctional family, and how things kind of led up to that. Okay, now when Veronica was young, her family, it included the cousins, and there were a lot of the way that they did it back in the county, going back to the original, was that they original settlers and all, is that they would usually families would build their houses close to one another, and these were very wealthy people, and they continue to be wealthy, and not all of them, but many of them. And as the times went by, because of laws and all kinds of regulations and such, okay, I don't want to be behind that person. They've got some boards hanging out back there, and I don't want to be hit by that. But anyway, real life happens in the middle of a video. But anyway, it drives for me sometimes around corners. It keeps me centered. But anyway, back to Veronica. So she's this member of this family, and she's the youngest in the family too. Not only was she the youngest in the original group members of geeks, basically, she was one of, and she's the youngest of her family. And you know, some would say, oh, she was spoiled and all this stuff, but really they ignored her. You know, the baby of the whole family, including the cousins and all. And she was in school, she was thought of as this, you know, basically the smart kid, you know, and people ignored her there. She was just ignored, is how she felt by everybody. Like she didn't exist. So when she was, you know, she also had a friend that was like that. When in high school, her friend went overseas with her family and attended school there. And when she came back, she was just dressing really odd and acting very odd. You know, it was a teenage rebellion. And Veronica picked it up too. Decided to be like her friend. And they were both, you know, I think some would consider it like goth girls, and or whatever is the term these days. And but they both started as they got a little older. They started, basically she realized, just as her friend did, that would get them, a lot of attention. And as they older, they just kind of modified it for their age, and they both seemed quite histrionic. Okay, both of them. And people noticed them, but they also got that really negative label put on them. They were histrionic. They made everything about them. They, each of them. But she kind of stopped with her friend as time went by. Her friend moved to the big city, and basically that's the friend she would say she was going to see. She'd tell her family, which she wasn't. She would go there, and she might see her friend, every once in a while, but her main reason was to go there and earn her degrees and not let her family know. She was ignored by them. She didn't want them to know what was going on in her life. They didn't care to know. Okay, they just didn't bother to ask, other than where are you on certain days, and you see, more out of just being nosy, really, when it came down to it. It was more about being nosy. And, she just knew some of her family members, they were off in their own little worlds. So she was off literally in her own little world. Yeah. Okay. Now for her, acting rather histrionic, like I said, it started off as a teenage rebellion, but really she, like many people in the county, she started taking, basically they take classes with GEMS Enforcement, GEMS Academy, and they take classes, they can take anything, like self-defense. They all learn self-defense and how to, whatever they choose, and that kind of thing. Some actually go to become lawyers, some are investigators, private eyes, bodyguards, security guards, whatever they choose, even in law enforcement and other ways, like to become a deputy, a police officer, so forth. They do it there. They do this. It's huge training. But so do the people, especially some of the group members from the original group members. They would take classes too, because they're very wealthy. Not only is she wealthy because she's a descendant of the original group, the descendant of the original settlers, but she's also one of this group. So she took classes, and she met a woman named Meg. And Meg's older, and she befriended her. Meg kind of took her under her wing, and gave her guidance that she just never really had from her family, and her own family, Veronica's own family. So she kind of attached her, she got attached to Meg as more of an older sister or younger aunt kind of thing. And so they kept in touch over the years, but there was some more. It was leading up to this, but whenever they needed somebody to do some work, they could call on, each of the members would call whomever for whatever it was that they needed. And they, of course, would get paid, but these are really wealthy people. It's not like they were desperate. They had a choice. So, okay, something else I should mention here. Whenever Veronica would go to her condominium in the big city, which is from the closest part of the county she grew up in, the closest part was like 2 hours away. Well, when she would go there, she would not dress like histrionic. She would not have all of her makeup, real thick, like being on stage, even though it was really all an act for her. Her hair, her bling, her, she wouldn't be loud and obnoxious and cackle instead of laugh and really loudly. Everything, with some histrionics is very loud. The appearance, the voice, all of it. She wouldn't be like that. She would, as soon as whatever day it was, like if she had classes 2 days a week, she would time her, she would make her schedule to where she would And she was wealthy. She didn't have to work, so she often wouldn't. She would take classes, and she would go to the big city. But when she got there, she went to her condominium, and she changed into herself, her real self, which was not at all loud and obnoxious in any way, appearance and otherwise. She was very calm. Okay, and sometimes, you know, nobody at either place ever saw her as her other, you know, her other, yeah. Like, they didn't, you know, when she, by the time she got home, you know, back to the county, she would have her makeup on, but by the time she, you know, got to the big city, she would have already changed her appearance back to just her normal, regular self. Okay, so in that way, she did live a double life in many ways, you could say. But like I said, for her, it was all for a purpose. She had purposes, including working for the original group members, which she was a member of, so she was basically kind of working for herself, too. And for all that was going on, and it was already leading up to it. But by 2020, when the county, early 2020, decided to have a lockdown, she had to give up her, she had earned her LPC, she had a small practice that she worked in the big city. She had to shut that down and do it over phone, go back to the county, and because of the lockdown, she didn't want to be left out, and they had all kinds of rules. So she went back, and she did her, you know, completed her case, you know, with her clients, the whole thing over the phone. And then before even she completed them, she was already working with Meg. I should say with, not for, with Meg and her group. So, okay. Well, that was a whole lot of background and information. This is part of a series of hypothetical fictional stories that I'm writing. And these are rough drafts. Helps me to get a little bit organized and see what works and what doesn't work. So some things may change without any notice. And I have them on more than one channel. I've been doing them for years like this. And so this is about, like I said, Veronica, and then part of Meg is in there. You know, I have her for years on a different channel. And, you know, plus there's a lot more that goes to this part. You know, I have them on different channels because they're different storylines. And now with, if I accidentally said Meg when I met Veronica, you know what I'm talking about. That can happen, believe me. Or I can use a totally different one just by accident. I've learned not to do numbers because especially since the time changes and they don't always work, the ages and everything. But, yeah, so... But this with Veronica, yeah, in the county, she is seen as just a really, you know, flirtatious, really, you know, to a lot of people, mainly to women, she just has that reputation of being really catty and kind of narcissistic, histrionic, you know, all these things. But, you know, in her life in the big city, she is a counselor. Okay, big difference, and she calms herself, you know, like I said. The other one is an act. She's keeping up an act in the county that she grew up in. But that may change as time goes by. I need to go in this store. So I'm going to wrap this one up since it's already so long. I don't know how long it is. But I'll talk to you on another video.